Well, moving over, COSATU President Dumo Dlamini joins us on the phone line to discuss further the current situation in South Africa over the protest on President Jacob Zuma. Mr. Dlamini, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on ANC7. Just talk us through your initial reaction with regards to the protest taking place nationwide with regards to people ordering President Jacob Zuma to step down. What is the COSATU stance on this matter specifically?
Thank you very much, Masisa, and good morning to your viewers. Indeed, COSATU has taken a view that today's marches are marches led by people who would have nothing to do with the interest of the working class and the interest of the workers in this country. It's a march that is indeed called by people who are advancing a different agenda than that of the workers or the working class. Hence, COSATU has decided that we are not going to be mobilizing our members for these activities of today. Whilst we respect people's rights to march, we are not part of these marches throughout the country. The second reason.
Well, Mr. Dlamini, just talk us through with regards to the meeting that COSATU had earlier on requested with President Jacob Zuma. Did you actually have the meeting with the president? And just talk us through the details as to what transpired in the meeting. Well, unfortunately, we have lost the COSATU president, Mr. Dumo Dlamini. They're joining us on the phone now, just unpacking more details with regards to COSATU's stand and stance with regards to the protest over President Jacob Zuma, ordering him to actually step down as the president of South Africa. Mr. Dumo Dlamini is actually back on the phone line to unpack further details on the protest taking place in South Africa. Well, Mr. Dlamini, welcome again. Unfortunately, we lost you earlier on. Just talk us through with regards to the meeting that COSATU had requested with President Jacob Zuma. Did you officially have the meeting with the president? Perhaps just talk us through the details of what transpired at the meeting.
Well, before I can respond to that, I was saying the second thing, what has surprised us with this march. These marches. 3 days ago, leadership of big business came to COSATU House asking for COSATU to join. They are going to join COSATU and asking that we work with them for this. At that moment, you begin to realize, no, this is in the interest of big business other than being in the interest of the working class. And we want to warn our workers not to be lured by their slave masters to take decisions that are anti-workers. But on the question you are raising, remember, we respect the confidentiality of the meetings we have with the leadership of the ANC, and we always would not want to talk publicly. All what I can tell you is that indeed COSATU president and the general secretary of COSATU met with the president of the African National Congress and the state president, President Zuma, at the request of President Zuma. After COSATU had announced its position that President Zuma must step down, we welcomed this meeting and went with open eyes and open hands to hear what the president had to say to us. There are other meetings that are to follow this meeting because we believe it is important to hear what the president has to say. It will be extended to a bigger delegation of COSATU. We also are hoping that the ANC collective leadership will respond to COSATU's request for a meeting to discuss the matters that COSATU has put across. And hence, we are looking forward to these very critical engagements that have begun with COSATU and the President of the Republic and the ANC and the African National Congress leadership to talk the critical issues that COSATU is unhappy with the African National Congress.
Now, Mr. Dlamini, just lament more details on these critical issues that you're planning to engage the President with.
Look, one amongst those, and very critically, is the agenda for a radical socio-economic transformation, which the ANC has at the moment come out saying they are pushing that agenda. As the workers, we would want to engage with them. For instance, how do we achieve the radical socio-economic transformation when the economic chapter of the National Development Plan is in the state that it is, and the labor market chapter of the NDP is in the state where it is? We want to engage with the ANC because we have agreed almost 3-4 years ago that we needed to review those two chapters of the NDP. If socio-economic transformation has got to be radical, we've got to hear the ANC, because in our meeting with the president, there are specific issues that we're to deal with. Indeed, we have his responses, and we still need to report back to our structures. But the ANC, the African National Congress, as the leader of the alliance, we want to discuss the reconfiguration of the alliance. We want to discuss how do we ensure that the alliance is united, led by the ANC. How do we ensure that issues of leadership succession do not plunge us into a crisis like we are faced with today? Those are the critical issues we want to engage with the ANC, and we are looking forward to those meetings.
Now, Mr. Dlamini, earlier on this week, we actually saw COSATU in a press briefing stating that they believe that President Jacob Zuma is no longer the right person to lead the tripartite alliance. Is this still the stand with COSATU? Have you changed your mind with regard to the utterances that the tripartite alliance has made earlier on?
The CEC decision remains, hence the engagements that are happening. They are also in keeps with what COSATU has pronounced. So the engagements will continue, and we will work to ensure that the outcomes are in the best interest of the working class in South Africa.
Now, Mr. Dlamini, do you feel that these protests taking place nationwide are standing at the brink of being hijacked for other political ulterior motives? What's your take on this?
These protests have long been hijacked. They started when people were attacking COSATU. We kept on telling you that Vavi represents a particular view from elsewhere outside COSATU. People ignored us. When then it happened within COSATU, you then saw figures who were emerging from nowhere, calling for an alternate to the African National Congress, people dividing COSATU unions. We then saw your Save South Africa, you then saw other formations that are new that have come up, and we have seen their program. It's definitely not about removing Zuma. It's about removing the African National Congress from power for reasons that are in the interest of big monopoly capitalists, not the working class. And we will continue to want to warn our people not to be confused by that. We have our problems. We must fix our problems and work hard to achieve fixing those problems. But we cannot take the country back to the minority white monopoly capital that has oppressed us for many, many years. We warn our workers in South Africa against that.
Now, Mr. Dlamini, as you've also mentioned yourself, that looking at the current state of South Africa politically and economically, we are not really going into the best direction currently. There's been many different voices coming out from different factions and different people entirely in South Africa with regards to, is South Africa in a state of crisis? Is it not in a crisis? What is COSATU's stance? What is the COSATU's view in the entire state that South Africa is in politically and economically? Are we facing a crisis? Are we in a crisis, or are we headed into a crisis?
A crisis indeed. We are in a crisis. Let's agree on that. There is no questions about that. We have to get ourselves out of the crisis. But as we get ourselves out of the crisis, we do not have to deepen our crisis. Let us not blame the masses who have been lured into joining some of these marches, some because are angry because of that issue in that ward there or that city there. We cannot blame them when they then go out with people, but we must advise and warn them. Don't be used to achieve goals that are not your goals. goals that will serve the interest of those who have oppressed you in the history. This thing is happening in the whole of Africa, that those previously colonized countries, the colonizers have come back to say they now want again to take the resources, the mineral resources in this country, and they are using the ordinary people, the poor, to dethrone their governments because of the mistakes of their government, and then install powers that will be in the interest of the monopolies and imperialism elsewhere. This is a fact we have seen, and we have warned again. If people destroy unions in South Africa, like COSATU unions, they are doing so because they know to destroy COSATU will then go into the ANC with ease. And they think they have achieved that when they think they can come and ask COSATU to join them in their marches. Workers be warned against these things.
Now, Mr. Mdlamini, just a last question to you over there with regards to your utterances on the protest currently taking place, stating that these protests aren't really, for the best interests of South Africa and not only to remove President Jacob Zuma. Would you say this entire protest have actually turned into a matter of race? That South Africa is pretty much divided over black and white. Is race still an issue in South Africa? And how best should we deal with this current situation in the country?
Look, indeed, there are two sets of protests that are happening today. There are those that are there to call for President Zuma to step down. There are those that are to defend President Zuma. The receipt for that is there for a war situation to be created in South Africa, which is exactly what the big monopolies want. They want just one death in this country, killed by a police, and then there is a revolution, and you see the Arab Spring here in South Africa. I don't think we need that. We must fix our problems, but we must not join our slave masters to kill ourselves, because they have no interest. For instance, if business today is saying we will pay workers for this work, the working day today, for not coming to work, will they do so when workers go on strike against the employers? And I really would expect that now a precedent has been set. Employers must pay workers when workers go on strike. The no work, no pay thing must go away, because business, the employers have started this. They are not, the principle does not apply during these actions today in the whole country. It's billions of rands that they will be losing, but they don't care. Let's keep that up. When workers go on strike, let them be paid a full day's salary for that day's strike that they've gone to. They've created that situation.
Well, Mr. Dlamini, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us here on Africa News Network this morning. Well, that was the COSATU president, Mr. Stumo Dlamini, just unpacking more details and COSATU's stance and reaction with regards to the protest taking place nationwide with regard to the request of President Jacob Zuma to step down as the president of South Africa. ANC Youth League members or